Hey guys, this is figure 3a. Basically this figure shows that an interaction between UFD2A and P73 exists. First off, over here, these left panels labeled input are just controls. They show that UFD2A exists endogenously in the cells and in the lysate. However, P73A does not exist unless it is introduced by a plasmid. So when the plasmid, when there's an empty plasmid introduced, such as the case here, no bands are seen. However, over here, bands are observed when the plasmid is present. On the right here, we have a couple different immunoprecipitats. The first one here is an immunoprecipitate with antibodies specific for UFD2A, and when there's no P73 plasmid present, nothing co-immunoprecipitates with it. This is a control where they used normal rabbit serum just to show that the proteins of interest are specific for the antibodies that they're using. And over here in this panel you can see that both P73 and UFD2A are present when only UFD2A is precipitated, immunoprecipitated, sorry. Down here, they did a similar experiment except in reverse. This time they did an immunoprecipitation for flag, which is the tag on the P73 alpha. Here, where no P73 alpha plasmid exists, nothing comes out. This again is a control, just showing that the proteins of interest are specific. The antibodies are specific for our proteins, and they don't come out normally. In this lane here, this is targeting the flag tag again on P73 alpha. However, this time, because the plasmid is present, both P73 alpha and UFD2A precipitate together. So this basically shows that an interaction between those two exists. Okay, so this is figure 5a. Basically what this figure shows is that UFD2A decreases the amount of P73 alpha. So what they did is they co-transfected U2OS cells with plasmids that express a constant amount of P73 alpha, except here, this is a control showing that when the plasmid which expresses P73 alpha is not present, nothing shows up in the immunoblot. Next, in some of these lanes, the cells were co-transfected with the plasmid for flag tag UFD2A, which expresses the protein in various amounts. As you can see from this panel, this is an immunoblot against the flag tag on UFD2A, and it can be seen that the levels of UFD2A introduced on the plasmid increase. This panel just shows the overall levels of UFD2A, so both endogenous and flag tagged UFD2 from the plasmids, and they're shown to increase as well. Just from the introduction of the plasmid, these three here can be seen to increase while these two stay the same. This last panel here is just a control which blots for actin, and basically this shows that since they're analyzing the intensity of these bands, they show that equal amounts of lysate were loaded because the levels of actin don't really change throughout. So the important part of this figure can be seen here, where increasing amounts of UFD2A decrease the level of P73A. And this led the researchers to believe that UFD2A downregulates P73 alpha. So this is figure 7. This figure is perhaps a central figure to this paper, as it shows that UFD2A downregulates P73A without ubiquitination. So in A, we see a cell that has been transfected with plasmids that express hemagglutinin tagged P73 alpha. This top panel here is an immunoblot against P73, and we can see that in the presence of UFD2A, the levels of P73 alpha decrease, as we saw before. However, in the presence of a proteasomal inhibitor, which is MG132, the levels of P73 are restored to as before, and this just indicates that the proteasome is responsible for the degradation of P73 alpha. So in the next panel, they introduced a plasmid which expresses ubiquitin, which is his-tagged, and this allows them to purify his-tagged ubiquitin and any proteins that are ubiquitinated. So as we can see here, in the absence of UFD2A, there's a certain level of ubiquitinated P73 alpha. However, when the levels of UFD2A increase, the levels of ubiquitinated P73 alpha don't really change. The reason for these broad bands is because each P73 alpha molecule can be ubiquitinated with multiple ubiquitin molecules. So figure C shows again cells that have been transfected with plasmids that express a constant amount of hemagglutinin tagged P73 alpha, and they have also been in these cases here transfected with a plasmid that expresses UFD2A delta. This is a mutant form of UFD2A which has the U-box region deleted, and as we discussed before, the U-box is necessary for the function of UFD2A, specifically its ubiquitination. So shown here, the levels of UFD2A increase in correlation with the increased expression of UFD2A. However, the levels of P73 alpha still decrease despite UFD2A not being able to ubiquitinate it. So this indicates that UFD2A downregulates P73 alpha without ubiquitinating it and by some other mechanism.